Greetings, Benjamin J. from Ben's Trains with another in the series. Well, a follow-up on that Canadian Pacific that arrived about, I don't know, an hour ago. Anyway, I pulled the motor out, got it lubed and tuned, added a traction tire to it. Haven't done anything with the locomotive itself at all yet. Just concentrated on getting the motor cleaned. And you can see I've scraped the push rods and oiled the wheels. And they're slowly coming back to life. By tomorrow they'll be black again. But I just want to do a quick video on this. This locomotive is running just absolutely perfectly. Now I've got it on the outside rail, tin litho, pulling 21 tin litho cars. And as you see, this is running just splendidly, absolutely perfectly. The E unit works. The motor is actually in really decent condition. It had just been sitting for decades unrun in a damp environment, very likely in the original box in a damp basement. So I've got the motor tuned up, lubed, and concentrated on getting the oxide off of it. And as you can see, this is running just absolutely perfectly. Like I said, this is pulling 21 tin litho cars. 3 of them are lighted. So it was definitely worth the $10. The motor itself is worth more than that. Plus I got 2 really decent cars with it, and one 556 caboose that will probably wind up in the parts box, but I can make use of the flat car. But this is running just absolutely splendidly, has the original light bulb in it, and about 20 minutes work. Basically just lubrication and cleaning. Cleaning the brushes, cleaning the armature, lubricating the wheel bearings, of course, the armature bearing, the output shaft, the intermediate gear. Added a traction tire, and this locomotive is just running splendidly. No problem with it at all. It's running absolutely perfectly, pulling 21 tin litho cars at about 40% power. So you really can't beat that. Single reduction motor, of course. So even if I do nothing else to it, it was worth what I paid for it. $10, you simply cannot beat that. So as I always stress, don't overlook the junk. Just because it's junk when you buy it, doesn't mean it's going to be junk when you're finished with it. And in this case, perfect example. I mean, this thing was an absolute wreck. I was the only bidder on this. And I actually wouldn't have seen it if it hadn't been for Gary over at Trains in the Basement. He sent me a message asking if I had seen it. Like I said, around Christmas, I stopped looking on eBay because the prices are just ridiculous, in my opinion. But in any case, as you see, this is running just absolutely perfectly. So the stock car, cattle car, whatever you want to call it, is here. I haven't done anything to it yet except lubricate the wheels. But as you see, that's in very good condition. And I have to lubricate the doors to get them sliding. But there's nothing wrong with that. Also got this tanker in really decent shape. And this rounds out my collection to 8 of them now, as you see. So just these 2 cars alone were worth $10. As far as the locomotive, the motor is running just absolutely splendidly. Whether I can get the rest of the locomotive cleaned up, no idea. As you can see, this is really rusty right here. So I might be able to scrape this away and spot paint it and clean this up. As far as getting the rust off of here, I doubt if there's much I can do. You can't be too aggressive or you just wipe out the paint, of course. So, like I said, even if I do nothing else to it, it was definitely worth the $10. And the motor itself is worth more than that. And the nice thing about it, of course, is that it's running just absolutely perfectly. It's complete. It's far from perfect, but it was really inexpensive, and it's up and running. And that's the important part. I don't judge a Marx locomotive on how they look. I judge them on how they run. And as you can see, this is running just absolutely perfectly. It's running like new. Like I said, pulling 21 cars at 40% power, and 3 of those cars are lighted. So I put that lighted tender on it, and this locomotive is just running splendidly. As you see. So far from perfect, but up and running. So you really can't beat the price. Now what I'm going to do with the locomotive will just depend on how it responds to some TLC. So first thing I'll do is saturate the paint with oil. That'll help break down some of the rust. And then we'll address getting the rust off of it. If I can, great. If I can't, I will probably just strip it and repaint it. The point being, it is complete. It has the markers, it has the finials, the stacks. Best of all, of course, is the fact that it's running like new. This thing has been here about an hour, and it's just running splendidly. You couldn't ask it to run better than this. So if I only used it for the motor, it was worth 10 bucks. If I only used it for those 2 cars, it was worth 10 bucks. So I gotta say it again, don't overlook the junk. 10 bucks on eBay, and I was the only bidder. Is it perfect? Nope, far from it. The thing is, it's running. That's the important part. An original Marx locomotive. This is circa 1955, perhaps, something like that. And like I said, it's far from perfect, but it is running. So far, I've done nothing to it except a bit of elbow grease and oil. Basically, just getting into it and getting it clean, getting the oxide off the motor, cleaning the brushes, cleaning the armature, making sure that the wheel bearings are lubricated, the output shaft bearing is lubricated, the armature bearing is lubricated. And that's all I've done to it, nothing else. I scraped the majority of the oxide off of the push rod, and used some 30 weight motor oil, a couple of drops on the wheels, and then scrubbed them with a old toothbrush, and then just left the oil on it, and it'll penetrate the pot metal, and it'll bring that pot metal back to life. It'll get rid of that white haze oxide that builds up on it. So all in all, you cannot beat the price. 10 bucks for the locomotive, and 3 tin litho cars, 2 of them which are in very, very good condition. So I'll be running this the rest of the day, and just want to do a follow-up video on this. So the very first thing I'm going to do is pull the motor back out, dunk this down into some hot water, and scrub it just to get the filth and the grime and grunge off of it. And then I will either spray it with WD-40 or just paint it with motor oil. And that will get down into this rust, and it'll lift quite a bit of it off. And when the rust comes off, there's a good possibility that most of the paint is going to come off with it. But you can spot paint these things, and I've had pretty good success doing that. So anyway, we'll see how this goes, but it's complete. It runs like it's new, and even if it's never perfect again, it was inexpensive. It's an original Marx locomotive. Best of all, of course, is that it is running just absolutely splendidly. You couldn't ask it to run better than this. As you see, it's running just absolutely perfectly. It's running like a new locomotive. Now, this thing had not been run very likely as long as I've been alive. And about 20 minutes work, basically just taking the motor out and cleaning it up. Making sure there was good quality oil and all the moving parts, cleaning it, getting the oxide off of it, but it is running just absolutely perfectly. No problem with this at all. The E-unit works, so it was definitely worth the 10 bucks. There's no doubt about that. Again, don't overlook the junk. So I just want to do a follow-up video on this. Marx Canadian Pacific with 4 tin litho cars, eBay 10 bucks, and I was the only bidder. So I just want to do a quick follow-up. It's running, and it's running like new. So, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to drop me an email, BENZTRAINZ@gmail.com. And as always, thank you for watching.